Aloha, my name is Benedict Howard, ebodyfusion.com for all of your training or scanner training needs and more. And today I have the unboxing of the RITM 1NT. This is a version 02, so it's the next to the top of that line RITM units. And this is a totally professional one. In this case, it's actually a Russian module or Russian manufactured unit. And so I'll be unboxing it to show you exactly what you get when you purchase one of these. The packaging may have changed a little bit. This is actually some units that I bought back in 2010, I believe it was, and I've had in storage since then. So inside the box, they provide you with two manuals. One is the operation manual, and secondly, the manual which is showing you the segment or the reflexology positions that you're going to be working. Really, really useful manual for basically knowing where to place it. Now, of course, in the eBody Fusion training, we don't concentrate on this type of information so much. We more go for the absolute values in there. So we'll do that in a moment. Now, this is exactly the unit that you would be getting if it was a Russian unit. Now, the Russian units are a little less expensive than the English ones. As you can see, this is brand new. It's still got the paper on it, and it's not got any batteries, so I won't be describing this unit. I'll describe with my own personal unit. However, very easy to turn off and on, and then you can dial up between the different settings in there, the power levels and stuff, which I'll explain in a moment. On the back, 3 AA batteries go in the back there, and that's the electrodes for contact with the skin. So let's take a look at this in a little more detail. As I said, I'm going to take my own personal unit that I've had for many years now. Actually, this is a 208 model, and these are really reliable up to the point where you might drop them, and then things can come loose inside. But I have dropped this on occasion, not onto concrete floors. They don't seem to last so well if you drop them onto a concrete floor, but onto a wooden floor or carpet, they seem to be fairly resilient. So when you power it on, let's put it on there right now. And finally, there's the screen, and here's the main screen that it will load to. Now, whoops, I'm going to scroll through the different settings here. Now, we've got these arrows here, which are plus and minus, and then down here, this scrolls a power bar or the highlight bar down through to adjust those different functions. And we're going to get back to the diagnostics, because that's a section unto its own in a moment, in another part of the video. So let's leave that at the moment, but if you were to change it, it would be changed to 1 or to 2, and but I'm not going to do that just yet. So the AM settings are for, let me show you again, got to hit this, and we've got 5 to 1, 4 to 1, 3 to 1 to 1. What that means is that the signal is on at 1 to 1, its signal is on equal times. It's on, then off, on, and then off. At the 1 to 2 turn, whoops, gotta watch this thing. That turns it off. And at the 5 to 1, it means that it's on for 5, off for 1. And so these settings, the AM modulation settings, are great for relaxation purposes. So let's turn it off. Whoops, turn it off here. And the FM is the frequency modulation, which allows the frequencies to sweep between about 15 Hertz all the way up to about 120, I think they work. Now there's a swing 1 setting, a FM on setting, and FM off. So we've got the 3 settings on that unit, on that device. So off is the normal setting. Putting it on or into the swing one, what's happening is that we've got variable damping, and the frequency is also changing there too. And so we actually get an extra range of frequencies being broadcast with the swing one. Then over here we got straight on, so the damping is off, but we just get the straight frequency sweep. which goes up and down. I think it's through the cycle every 8 seconds. So moving on to the next one, the damping, we have different damping factors: variable, SC4, SC3, 2, 1, and off. I have never used those settings in all of my work with the scanner, so I'm not up to speed with what they do. Now let's go back. Sorry, I should have turned the FM off. There we go. Now here we got frequency, and we can adjust the frequency, and you can see it going to different places there. 15.3. Now that's the lowest frequency that this unit develops. It is not as low as like the Diadem's PCM, which goes down all the way to 1 Hertz, but this is totally adequate. So 15.3 all the way up, and it bleeps at different standard settings: 59.6, 90.7, 119, 181, that is. And the next one's up in the 354 Hertz. So what that does is it delivers very high frequencies, and most of the time, like, unless you want specific frequencies for specific purposes that we cover in detail in the training, you would normally use this unit in the factory default setting of 90.7 cycles per second or hertz. And that frequency you would use basically for, like, well, way over 90% of the time. Now the interval here, it goes all the way from 1 through to 10, is the interval between the signals, because the waveform is like a pulse DC, so it goes pulse, it's high, and then it drops off and then wobbles. And so it's this interval time here changes that, and the gap also underneath. Those two units I don't change much at all. So that's briefly the settings and how we scroll through them. We can change the orientation of the screen. That's upside down, sideways. So if you're working on somebody this way, which is probably more the way you'd be working, you would have it like that, but I had it turned sideways for the camera, so we get the best screen area usage. And oops. Now you can't scroll through those changes until that bar is gone. Now I can scroll. And there's one other setting which I can never quite remember to get, which actually is takes you into the settings to change the screen, the contrast on there, the sound levels and stuff like that. If I was going to use this on the skin right now, what I would be doing is I would bring up the power a little bit, and that's this little numbers up in the top here. So that's 20. And when I put my finger on here, that's when I start to feel the tingles at some power level. And depending on how many nerves are in my fingernail or fingers compared to on my arm, the fingertips are way more sensitive. And we bring up the power to just where we feel it tingling. So in this manual over here, for instance, where we'd be working on these different zones in the body for specific conditions, this is the setup that you would be using, and you bring up the power to whatever level that you can feel it at those locations. In this case, it's called the 6 points, and or down the thoracics there for back or lung problems, etc., etc. So now it's gone into a standby mode, which these units automatically do, and that's to save battery. As soon as I press this one, it brings it back live. So what happens when it's in standby is that the heads actually go off, switch off. So let's take a look at what really makes this unit very different than all of the DNAS units, for instance, and is this setting here. See, that's diag. We have diag 1, diag 2, and I don't think this unit has a diag 3. Let's just check. Whoops. No, it has a diag 0, diag 1, and a diag 2 settings in it. Now the diag 1 is what, when we're looking to see how Using the diagnostics in here allows us to compare symmetrical places around the face, for instance, like I just pointed to. These are where the trigeminals come out in the jaw and the eye and above the eyebrows here. So these bones have like a whole bunch of nerves that come out and go into the face, but they're also direct access back in through the cervicals back up into the brain. So by working on these points, for instance, you're working on a whole balancing of all of the face. It's the basis of a cosmetology procedure. And it's also the basis of getting into the balance all of the face points and consequently the links back up into the brain. So you would use the diagnostics, and I'll show you this right now. You'll use the diagnostics. Now the screen had gone out, so I had to press this button here to get the screen active again. And what power do I have this set up? I should check that before I put it on my face, because the face is really sensitive. So here we go. It's a little high, but it's not uncomfortable. So that number there, the 85, which is there, let's compare it to the other side. And I can't see it yet, is 95. So we had an 85 value here and a 95 value over here. The reason why they're so high on my skin now is because I just put on some creams on my face, and so there's more conductivity in there, so the readings will be higher. Plus it's really hot in this room now, so I'm slightly perspiring. But what it's telling us is in this instant reading, 81, 76. Now they changed a little bit, that's okay. That 81 is higher than this point by 5 or more points. That's telling us that at 5 points spread that we should go back and dose this position, and I'll show you that in a moment. So what one can do with this is one can very quickly pinpoint exactly where you need to spend more time on the body. And with the written professional units, this is an instant on reading compared to the DNAS, which is a 5-second reading. It takes 5 seconds to get you that reading. So that's the dose. Now what happens, excuse me, that's like the scanning mode. It's called in the written classical Russian training, it's called the initial reading. And this initial reading can be used, or this method can be used to compare down the back, on either sides of the back, where there might be curvature, where there might be pinching of nerves. You can very quickly diagnose and treat different areas that need more work. So that's the advantage of this dose system. It's very quick. In the case where I do need to take doses, and if there's a lot of readings to be taken, then I would pull out this unit for that. Or I would use one of the E0 units that has the readings as well. So moving on here, let's go back to the screen. So we looked at Diag 1, and I'm going to go into Diag 2 for a moment. Where are we? Go. Boom, 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 boom. Keep on missing it. I missed it again. Okay, there it is. So there's Diag 2. Now what Diag 2 does is I put my thumb on here, and then if I were to read again, there's another reading that comes up. Okay, now that very quickly dosed my finger. Now the Diag 1, the Diag 2 and the Diag 1 in this unit doesn't appear to be different. They used to have, in the earlier written units, a really useful algorithm on the diags, which would give you a whole series of readings down the screen, which was really good to just take a whole blocks of readings and then find the highest point. And but it doesn't appear that this unit is set up that way. Too bad. Now, going back to the dose again. Oh, we've gone upside down on you. How do we get that back? Well, I'll turn it around. Somehow I've switched this to the upside down. You can put it sideways in different ways. I can't remember how you do it. That off. Okay, so there it is again. So going back to like Diag 1, now that means that the diagnostics is turned on, which means that if you leave it on the skin, ouch, that's too high. I'm going to bring the power down. I'm going to bring the power down to 12. Okay, that was The readings on that one was 86. And for some reason that one dropped. I don't think it's that. Yeah, 81, 86. So we still got this on the high side. Now you'd go and dose the high side, which means that you leave it on there and you see those numbers that are changing? What they're telling us is that as this area primes up, kind of like you're charging the battery of the cells. I'm so close to the camera, my voice is going to be so loud. Now that was a double click, and then in a moment, and that was a treble click, which is the different statistical points. There's another one, and that's the dose. So that long ring means that that area is now fully primed with electrons. And there's been enough resistance change in the skin values to show this, the chip in here that has primed and it has dosed out. So that's how long it's like. That's equivalent to in the DNAS world, it's equivalent to what they call the minimum effective dose, which actually is a better description than, in my view, than the SCENAR RITM people have. So now it's gone into standby mode. Now let's have a look at some of these other settings, and I'll explain them in detail. Okay, so let's go back up to the dose, and I'm going to switch it off. So now it's diag equals 0. Now in the AM, which is off and on, this 5 to 1 means it's on for, let me get this right, it's on for 5 lengths of time and off for 1. And we can change how long it's on, 4, 3, 2, which would be on, off, on for 2, off for 1, on for 2, off for 1. So you can, what those settings do, and there's a 1 to 1 underneath that too, which is equal on and off. So what they do is that they are a more relaxing way of getting the information or the electrons into the body. So that's what the AM, the amplitude modification, is for. Now the amplitude, the FM in here has different settings as well. So let's just quickly scroll down those. S switch 1, swing 1. I can't see that from, oh yeah, and FM is on, off, oops. So we have swing 1 and on FM and off FM. So we've got 3 settings in there. Now, you'd use the FM setting is a sweep of frequencies, i.e. it's sweeping from the 15.3 and going all the way up to the 354 Hertz and then back down again. And it sweeps up and down every 8 seconds. So what that's doing is kind of going, and so what that's doing is it's like giving the body a wide spectrum of different notes or different frequencies. The screen mode, not the screen mode, I'm getting my nomenclature, the swing 1 mode we'll cover in the training itself. It's a variation on that, and it's used for very specific conditions. Now, I would like to also, before I go in here and get really technical with you, and you go like max out on like, what's this guy talking about? How can I learn all of these settings? You don't need to. You do need to know that you're going to be using the 90 Hertz, basically 95% of the time. You're only going to use the other frequencies when you know what you're doing, or you're dealing with specific conditions, i.e. you're going to use the higher frequencies up in the 200 to 300 Hertz range for when there's a lot of pain. Because the higher frequencies are very good at scrambling the nociceptors, which are the pain receptors in the skin, and blocking that nerve, that energy going to the brain. So it dampens the pain very quickly. It's not that it's killing the pain, it's not about that. However, we do use the 90 Hertz, the 70 Hertz, those sort of frequencies, or 60 Hertz frequencies a lot. And the reason for that is because they release the broadest spectrum of neuropeptides, which is basically what you want to do. You want to get that pharmacopoeia of neuropeptides into the body. So down to the next one, we've got a damping setting, and come on guys, okay, it's either on or off, and the damping is a setting that we will cover more in the training too, because it isn't that critical. So I'm going to just reboot here for a moment. It's quicker than going through and changing everything. So I'm going to put it back at its original factory default on settings, which is what you'd use 95% of the time. I can't repeat myself enough on that clue here, because people get wigged out with like, oh, what frequency do I use? And so here we go. Now back to this AM FM. AM FM. FM VAR, which I think FM on, excuse me. Okay, FM on. That FM VAR now is, let's just bring the power up a little bit. Now I've got so hot in this room, it's not really making a good sound anymore because I'm sweating so much. But what I was going to try and to illustrate to you was the sound that you will get, because when you brush it against the skin, when you initially put it on, it's starting at 15 Hertz, and I can feel it pulsating like that. Now it's getting faster, and now it's going real fast, and now it's beginning to slow down again. So it's going ramping up and down. So there are some other settings in here, so let's just take a look at that. We looked at the damping and we look at the interval. Now, interval is this bottom one on the bottom there, and you can change it from 1 to, I think, like 7. Where is it? 1 to 8. Yeah, it depends on the unit, that quantity. Again, it's not critical that you know this at this venture in your training, but it is there too. And you can go to the instructions to see exactly. Now, these manuals don't actually tell you things like the frequencies and what they do, which is what I just clued you into. But they do show you the waveform, and they describe the electrical engineering behind that, behind using those settings. And of course, this manual here, which comes with the unit, is for specific treatments of specific conditions. So it's off in standby now. I'm going to turn it off. Yeah, so I hope, hopefully I've explained this well to you. These things are really easy to use, and I think the hardest thing about using these units is really getting that healing can be as quick as it can be with this electrical energy. So my name is Benedict Howard. Please visit me at ebodyfusion.com for your scanner training needs and more. And I have special coachings for people that are in complicated situations that do need, weekly support. And so we have like teleconferences around that on a weekly basis in the coaching. Aloha.